It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. Most of the time. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. Most of the time. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and with me, my co-host, Phil Emery. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm doing good. I made a big snafu, and we did a bit of the show, and I forgot to record. So this is
goodness.
This will be even better than the first one.
At least we're not live on the radio like we used to be. Remember that when the live switch didn't go on or something?
Oh yeah.
Back in the day.
Hey, I'm not union. What do you want?
I want you to be union. Yeah. Okay. So recombobulate yourself. Good to go. For the rest of us, please send your comments and questions to at Song Talk Radio on Facebook or Instagram, or feedback@songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode and to find links to resources we mention and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with songs we feature. No songs tonight, but a lot of links and a lot of stuff. You're definitely going to want to visit the website for this episode. We're very happy to welcome back Frank and Lisa Horvat. Frank Horvat is an award-winning and critically acclaimed composer and pianist. He maintains an active schedule of recording projects and performances of his own compositions. His portfolio of works consists of chamber, pop rock, electronic, musical theater, film, and large ensemble pieces. His music has been premiered on 4 continents and featured on TV networks like the CBC, HBO, and Bravo, and a variety of radio stations internationally. Since 2007, Frank has released over 19 albums and has been featured on many more, showcasing his versatility across labels such as ATMA Classique, Azul Music, Leaf Music, and Centrediscs. In 2021, Frank Horvat delivered a powerful statement with the album Music for Self-Isolation, hailed as one of CBC Classical's top 5 classical albums of the year, and Ludwig van Toronto's Year in Review Classical Gems. He joined us that year on Song Talk Radio, so be sure to go check out that episode. Tonight, we're joined by Frank and his wife/manager, Lisa Horvat, to talk about the how-tos of music distribution. Welcome back to Song Talk Radio, Frank and Lisa.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys again.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us. This is really awesome. As we were talking about before we started recording, that was a great episode to be part of. But we were reminiscing about that awesome episode we did about the TV theme show songs. That was like one of my memorable things. I think you guys should have me back on just to go through all my episodes that I've been on, like little snippets of all of them. You know,
the Frank Horvat highlight reel.
Yeah, it's the Frank Horvat Song Talk Radio retrospective.
Retrospective.
Yeah. You know, because there's so much gold there. You know.
Yeah. We'll have to include the blooper reel on that one. Phil, are you muted?
Can't hear you.
Not anymore.
Oh, there we go. Saw your lips moving. Sorry, what were you saying, Phil?
I was saying that we were going to have a whole event with tuxedos and the whole thing.
Black tie only.
Black tie. Yes. Well, you guys have done so many shows. I'm sure you've done some fancy clothes, black tie, anniversary type of shows. Yeah.
Well, there was the one year we the Tuesday night when we did it at the radio station was Halloween, so we dressed up for a radio show. Go figure.
Before podcasts.
Yes, that was great fun. But,
yeah, it was great.
But we Facebook lived it. There's a video as well. Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, we're here to get down business. We're going to talk about music distribution. So we've got a few questions that hopefully our listeners are curious about when it comes to music distribution. So just to get us all on an even keel, what is music distribution and why should we care as artists?
Sure. Well, I mean, artists work so hard at writing their songs, recording their music, producing it. So once you do all that work, of course, you want to get it out so people can hear it. So that's where you partner up with a music distributor who can help get your music out either online through streaming sites or other sites online, or if you have physical CDs, cassettes, vinyl, and what have you, trying to get that into stores and other locations where you can sell it.
Cassettes making a comeback as well as vinyl.
Oh, that's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I
is
think
so weird.
you also asked the question, why should you care about distribution as an artist? And I think I'll just add to that what Lisa said is I know because of the mindset of the hard work that goes into making an album, you writing, you're recording, you're editing, you're mixing, you're mastering. There's so many steps that go into making an album of your music, right? And I think because sort of, the businessy kind of stuff comes at the end, I think it's a really common thing in our world for you just to lose gas. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
that's why I'm really happy you asked the question, why should you care about it? Is because it sort of relates to that often as artists, especially most of us, 95% of us are working, independently and just doing all the work ourselves to put our music out there, right? But I always tell people, especially young musicians and students, that if you're going to put your heart and soul into making your music and getting it out there, you owe it to yourself to make an effort with, making sure that you do your homework and get it into, connected with a great distributor or, somebody that has good reputation and that type of thing, and even promo and doing PR and stuff like that. So it's sort of like, it's kind of research. A lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight isn't very artistic and stuff, but it's important. That's why it's so great you guys want to do this topic and have this conversation, because this is the kind of thing that often as artists we want to overlook. But ironically, this is like, to get your stuff out there for people to hear it, you got to do that. And if you made the effort to make an album, you already have admitted that you want to get your stuff out there. If you don't want to get your stuff out there, why go to the thing of recording an album, unless it's just a memento and a keepsake for yourself? But I guarantee like 99% of us aren't wired that way. We're putting an album out there because we want people to hear our stuff, right? So,
yeah.
What do you need to do with your music? Like, at what stage does it need to be before you think about getting into distribution? I imagine it should be mastered in some form, or?
Yeah, definitely. That's a step. Sometimes it's an extra expense and people kind of want to skip it. They just want to edit and mix and then kind of feel that, you've recorded it, you've edited, you mixed, it sounds great. So why bother with the mastering stage? But you can talk about it. But mastering just adds a whole new level to your sound in general. Just really refines it, brightens it up, and also creates a cohesion for all the music on your album. So sometimes, you recorded one song one day, and then 6 months later you record another song somewhere else, and so mastering will take the whole album and make it kind of flow and make it sound as good as the other music that's out there. So especially with streaming sites these days, your music can be put on a playlist with other, multi-million-dollar artists, and you want yours to sound just as good. So for a few $100s, give or take, it's an important step to take for sure.
Yeah, definitely worthy investment.
For sure. So what about all the other things like artwork and lyrics and songwriting splits, and you got to have all that sort of information, all that metadata. You got to have all that stuff sort of organized before you start it, or ideally you should. Yeah.
Yeah, it all starts with the good song, the good album, something that's well produced, well recorded, that you feel proud of, and then again, as we just talked about, well mastered. But there's lots of other things. Every release you put out there, whether you're doing a single or you're doing a whole album, you need unique artwork for that, and you want to make sure that it represents the music, you and the music, that it kind of has the same fit. And also these days too, depending on how you're distributing your music, if it's going to be online a lot, you need to create a big, beautiful piece of artwork, but you also have to shrink it down to a little tiny bit and see, does this look good? Is it going to catch people's attention when they're looking at, a screen of like 20 albums? Is your little thumbnail going to, pop out?
Yeah, that's true. Like in our work, and Lisa and I collaborating, putting out albums, we've definitely, I remember we've scrapped. We've basically had some amazing album design for us, but we had to scrap it because of what Lisa said. It's just when we like you're using Photoshop or some, software, it's just like, okay, now take this image, like, which is like our whole screen and stuff, and let's shrink it down to like a thumbnail.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, we can't see anything.
Yeah.
So,
and how big are people seeing it on their phone when you got the whole, Spotify app, and then the artwork is only one tiny little square of that small screen, and it can be really, really small. And you're right, it can be really, really big too.
What's now? Are there different kinds of distribution companies? You always hear things like a CD Baby a distribution company, and
that's the biggie, right? That's the one. That's one of the big ones. So we got CD Baby,
DistroKid. Those are some of the big ones. TuneCore as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's AWOL. What else? There's others that are specific to different genres of music, but those are kind of some of the bigger ones that have been around for a while. Then there are also newer players on the scene as well. So you kind of always have to do your research and keep up with it. And actually that's you don't need to choose your distribution company till like the very end. However, even when, once you've decided you want to make a release, it isn't a bad idea to kind of do your research and pick a distribution company, because some distribution companies these days also offer services for mastering. So, you might work with an engineer or do it yourself to edit and mix your album, but it's a good idea to get someone who specializes in mastering. And one way to do that, some distribution companies offer that service. And we were talking about artwork. Distribution companies will usually lead you through the process of, how big your artwork needs to be. There's certain things like you can only have the title of the album and the title, the names of the musicians on the front cover. You can't, go putting your website address on the front of an album.
Oh, really?
And so there's certain rules. And so distribution companies often will give you tidbits on what to do and what not to do. So as you're going through all the steps before you actually send your stuff to them, you know that you're on the right path.
Yeah, and I think... Sorry, Phil, but I was just going to add that, often when Lisa and I are getting ready to put out an album, I think we often will decide on how we're going to distribute this album. Like in our world, basically, when we're working on an album, we basically have two choices when the album's in production. Either we're going to shop it to a label, and that label is going to be do all the distributing, or we're just going to release it ourselves and use one of these distribution companies to do it ourselves. So often we will already decide that, even during the mix, maybe we're done recording and we know the general gist of what this album is going to sound like. So we'll if we're going to self-release it and we're going to use like a CD Baby or a DistroKid, we're already starting to look into the details of what those companies offer, the specifics, because it might impact the uniqueness of our album, even down to little technical details. I think it's always a good idea to know exactly how you're going to distribute it or who you're going to distribute it with before you start mastering, because in mastering, yes, it does the nice final sheen, to make your sound really pop out and sound really awesome. But there's also, like you mentioned before, a lot of issues around metadata and that kind of thing. And if you're working with a mastering engineer, they'll often do that. So at the end of the mastering process.
And you only work with one company at a time?
Yeah, for sure. So your album can only be distributed by one company. And when you're shopping around, I mean, there's different things to consider when you choose your company. One is, so this distributor, where will they send your music? So will they help you distribute physical copies if that's something you have and are interested and want to do beyond the concert stage? When they're distributing to online streaming websites and that kind of things, which ones do they distribute to? And sometimes, depending on your music, there are kind of niche streaming sites. So if you have a certain genre of music and it has a niche streaming site, you want to make sure that your distributor will get your music on that particular site.
And give you the option of ones you don't want to. So for a lot of artists, for example, a lot of artists are not passionate about Spotify, just out of principle that they don't give enough things. So I know ones we've dealt with that give you like a long checklist, right? Where you just, in your account, you pick your little check boxes of which ones you don't want, and they will ensure that it's not there, so.
Right.
And then different distributors have different financial models. Mm-hmm. So one thing is you will have to pay, the distributor, and some of them work per release. So when you release a single, you have to pay them X amount of dollars. If you're releasing an album, it's so much money. Other distributors, you pay a yearly fee, and they will distribute as much music as you have to release that year. They'll distribute it all, which is kind of cool. And I know like a lot of people work on that model, especially if they're releasing a lot of music. However, if you stop paying the yearly fee, then your music stops being on Spotify or Apple Music or what have you.
Which is dangerous, because if your music started to gain traction and get on playlists and stuff, and then because of the financial, arrangement you're talking about, that it's all of a sudden not there, you lose a lot of traction in your music getting out there with the algorithm of, sites like Spotify or Apple Music and stuff. So.
But if you pay per release, per album, you pay the X amount of dollars, then that's it. You don't need to pay every year. Your album continues.
That's what we usually do, right?
We do.
Yeah, we usually do.
And there's good and bad about it. A lot of people we know go the opposite way. Also, some distributors will take a cut of your earnings. So if Spotify is writing you a check for whatever you've earned on Spotify, they will take sometimes a percentage of that. So that's something to consider. And again, there's, good and bad in all models. But then, so beyond that, a lot of distributors have other services. So we talked about the mastering service. Some of them will actually promote your music to playlists or other places. And some will just, get it up there, and they won't do anything else for you beyond that. So those are all kind of things you have to look at. What other services they're offering? Are those services important to you, or do they not matter? Are they worth paying for or not?
I would assume that promotion is always an add-on feature. It's never included in your base cost, is it? I wouldn't think.
No. I mean, a lot of these distributor sites that service the DIY musician and stuff, like the costs that we're talking about are pretty minimal, right? These days, a lot of artists who really want to get their stuff out there, they're shopping to a label. And these days, the state of the financial makeup of the industry, a lot of labels are expecting you to pay to be on their label, so that's sort of common. And because of that, but what you get for that, if you do your homework and you really scope it out and that type of thing, you get a lot more massive promotion. Now, can, the CD Baby or the Distro Kids help a little bit with that? Yeah, but in general, if you really want promotion, and you don't want to do that promotion yourself or hire like a separate PR person that just does that, then, you might look to the label, a label to try to shop your album to a label, because they'll cover all your distribution of what we're talking about tonight, but they'll package everything. They use their network to get the promotion out there. So I know that was a big thing for us, right? One of our albums we did was on a label, and because it just skyrocketed through all these Spotify playlists. It was just like mind blowing, and you have no way yourself to get to these people who run these playlists and stuff just for being on that label. It all of a sudden happens. So you see you pay. What's the old saying? You have to spend money to make money. Well, in our case, there's no making money, but for promotion, I guess, is
well, you certainly get what you pay for, is what you're going
so
for.
A lot of smaller labels will use distributors just like any of us have access to. So the CD Baby and the Kids. But other labels have more top tier distributors. So that could be like Warner Brothers. So, you're not going to have like a Warner Brothers logo on your album, but it's still distributed through their system. And
they're only servicing other labos, these big high distributors. So, that's a whole other level, right?
Exactly. So that's something to think about. Sometimes a label can get you into a distributor that you can't, get into yourself. Also, some labels have specific relationships with, let's say, Apple Music or Spotify, where they have the ear of the people there and can get you onto playlists and other special promotions on their homepages, like with Apple Music, more than you could yourself.
And just to make it clear, the only reason why we're talking so much about the background of these distributors that service the DIY musicians out there, the indie musicians, is because, and you jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have no other choice, basically.
Yeah.
That's why this show is so important. And a lot of people watching or listening right now might feel like, oh man, this is why the music business sucks so badly. It's like a mafia, basically, because if you want to get your music onto Spotify, you cannot just call up Spotify and say, "Hi, I'm Joe White, and I just wrote this folk album. Can I have my music on Spotify?" And they're like, "No, you got to go through CD." Basically, the big streamers, they do not deal with individual musicians. So you have, unfortunately, we don't have to get into the efficacy or the morality of the music business here. It's just the way it is, and there's nothing we can do about it. And thankfully, these companies that are servicing us, thankfully, it's not absorbently expensive. So,
and it wasn't, and like you say, it wasn't a choice, because a generation ago, before online, before DIY stuff, really, like producing your own album at home and doing it all yourself, and like you say, the artwork you do yourself, all the distribution, ostensibly you're doing it yourself, and those companies didn't exist a generation ago, because a generation ago your only choice was to shop it to a label. Yeah.
So at least now we have a second type of choice.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and shop it to a label, assuming you were able to record it yourself in the first place. Right. Or you just didn't get them. Because before, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the label sort of took on artists as projects and invested in them and did everything for them, from recording to promotion to distribution.
That's rare today.
Yeah. And that's pretty much unheard of today.
Yeah. However, back then also, they did all that stuff for you, but they charged you for it.
But you had to pay it back.
Yeah. So there's like some Canadian bands who were pretty big back in the 80s, like big household names, and they never really made any money because they never actually got to the point where they had paid off what they owed the record labels. Like all those parties the record labels gave, you paid for catering, you paid for everything. So Yeah, different times.
Yeah. So there's choice.
Yeah, I always found it interesting too that like you're saying, Lisa, like they do have different financial models. So certainly you want to look at each company individually, because I literally just yesterday I saw a post on I think it was the home recording or the songwriting group on Facebook, and a couple of people there were surprised when they got charged again for their subscription, because they didn't realize it was a subscription. They got pulled into the marketing. And then the next year they were like, "Oh, I just got charged again." I'm like, "Yeah, you just got charged again. You signed up for a subscription. You got to be careful. Are you signing up for a one-time charge thing, set it and forget it, or are you signing up for a subscription?" Because a lot of these companies are going for subscriptions, and that's kind of, I mean, in some ways that's kind of the trick, because if DistroKid says you pay us every year and you can upload unlimited amount of music, you have almost no incentive to go to a different distributor at that point. You're kind of locked in them.
Yeah.
Very tricky on their part, I think.
Mm-hmm. So it is an important decision for sure.
Because
give yourself enough time, even before you start recording, to get a sense of where you want to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great.
So is there anything, I mean, you guys have been doing this, quite a long time. Is there anything you wish you could, you wish you knew then that you know now when it comes to distribution?
Well, think about that for a second. But admittedly, our first album that we released independently, we didn't professionally master anyway. Let's put it that way. Like, why? Why would we need? So again, we'll stress that from at the top of the show that mastering really allows your sound to shine. So it's really important. What else?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we've ever really, like Lisa and I, because I think we're very fortunate that we're able to work together. We're sort of like checks and balances with each other. And I think you brought up a really good point, Neil, when it comes to, shopping for a producer, you really have to do your homework and read things really carefully and decide like the various structure of the way they offer the services or their fee structure. Does it fit with what you're trying to accomplish with your music career? And I know we've mostly done CD Baby over the years. I think once we did AWOL, and we tried different, or DistroKid once or twice, and we've tried the different ones, and you just sort of get used to what works well for you and what you do. And honestly, I think the bigger thing for Lisa and I often in our practice, and I think other artists can relate to this too, is when we're working on an album, we'll often have the at some point in the production of the album, we're going to have that conversation. Should we shop this to a label, or should we just go ahead and release it ourselves, via like a CD Baby like operation? And and that's a tough thing because it's usually like amount of money, right? If we got a grant, and I know Lisa was on for one of the show, we did a whole grant episode. Yeah. I'm sure that was quite a few years ago, but I'm sure it's all relevant, all the information we gave in that episode back then. But a lot of times you can get a grant that can fund all this kind of businessy stuff, not just that. So maybe you can talk about that, because often that's been our thing of like whether we decide to shop to a label and then pay the bigger label fees versus just the simple distributor. So, money is always what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, different labels have different fee structures again. So, that's something to consider. But again, it's about what services are they providing and how much are those services worth to you. If you love doing your own PR and you got a little Rolodex going of people to contact and you got relationships with them, then, you might not need the label so much. Although, again, if you are looking at a label, find out what distributor they're using and how that might help, further your music. And so see whether it's worth it.
Otherwise, the CD babies of the world are so inexpensive that, it really doesn't really come down to money, but it comes down to what you talked about, Neil, which was, do I know exactly what I'm going to get or what I'm expected of me in this arrangement I'm coming to with this company, and so you're not surprised by that scenario you described earlier. That's what really happened to us before.
And yeah, so if you do end up choosing the wrong distributor for, what you want to do, it is, can be sad, because if you cancel with that distributor, then your music comes down from the streaming sites. And yes, you can get another distributor and they'll put it back up. But if you've gotten plays, if you've gotten likes, if you've gotten into playlists with your music, that all disappears and you're kind of starting over again, like it's been re-released.
Yeah, the algorithm doesn't know that it had that stuff before, right?
And would you?
It's zero listens at that point, and you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about that. Like, if I released an album 5 years ago and then no longer paid DistroKid, then they deleted all my stuff, and then I re-uploaded it with CD Baby. Will it then have a 2024 release date, or would it still contain all the data from before?
Yeah, I mean, with like CD Baby, I think, memory serves me correctly, you can choose the release date, so you can backdate it. You
can backdate it, okay.
Yeah. So you'll
like
still have
release.
The proper metadata for your album, and and it's not difficult to, it's a pain, but it's not difficult to have to re-upload all your files and reset it up and pay the small fee. But it is, if you have, built an audience and plays and stuff around your previous release, you lose all that. So, if you're in a distributor right now and you're not getting a lot of traction and you think you've chosen the wrong distributor, well, maybe you want to pull it down and reconsider and reconsolidate before, your music finds an audience.
Could you talk to, when you're working with more like a CD Baby kind of company, how has your experience been with them?
I mean, we've had a pretty good experience with CD Baby. Now, some of our music's a little niche, and they don't distribute to some of the niche streaming sites. That would be good for us. So that's kind of something, that we're pondering right now. I pride myself on being really good. We talked about metadata before, and reviewing and re-reviewing metadata, making sure that I get it right. Because you really have to get it right the first time around.
Don't misspell anything.
Yeah.
You misspell something, that could be there for posterity, and trying to get that changed once it's out there could be like, pulling out teeth.
Yeah. Now, once I did make a mistake, and
me.
And CD Baby really hummed and hawed, and I really pressed them, and I finally got my way and got it fixed. So in the end, I'm happy. I mean, they've always done what they said they would, and they have helped in time of crisis. But
so, like a company like CD Baby, when you're you're going through the process online of uploading the files to them and their online platform and your account and that kind of thing, they ask you a whole bunch of other questions of like style and mood and that kind of thing. And Lisa's right. Sometimes we've had issues with that kind of thing about picking those kind of categories. And, that's something us musicians hate, right? The last thing, we always have a joke in the composer world that, what question do we hate? What kind of music do you write? It's just like, so, but you have to answer that question with these kind of, like these distributors. It's necessity,
Yeah. And they also, and again, I talked about, they're not great in the classical niche that our music is often in. But also, and correct me if I'm wrong, CD Baby, but I don't think they currently really offer high quality downloads. So if you do have, there are some streaming services Yeah, Tidal, and they do distribute to Tidal, but I don't think they distribute high quality files to them. And Apple Music now allows Atmos and mixes and stuff. I don't think CD Baby allows for that, and I don't think CD Baby distributes to Qobuz, which is another one of the high res streaming sites. So again, as we go forward and more high quality streaming and stuff like that is important if it's important to your music. And if you have those high quality files, you might want to find the right distributor.
Yeah, it's like you really, we're it's almost like this show was just about like housekeeping, like doing musician stuff. But what Lisa's talking about is something that every musician really needs to do. It needs to do a deep dive into who you are, what is your brand, and what's important for you to get your stuff out there. You would think, okay, what does that have to do with just uploading songs onto some site to get onto Spotify, right? Well, you can see that everything Lisa's talking about will impact which distributor you pick to get your stuff out there. And if you don't even know, if you haven't done a deep strategic deep dive within yourself about, who you are and how you want to be perceived in the world and how does that represent your sound being shared in the world. If you haven't done that homework, then you can see that shopping on these sites can become very difficult because you might pick the complete wrong one that isn't offering the services that would be the best benefit to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I've seen more recently, our little Alexa box, when we ask it to play some songs, it displays the lyrics on the screen. I've seen this on Spotify as well. There's a little tab there that you can show the lyrics, and it displays them in real time. So I'm assuming there's some algorithm in the back that's just listening to the music and has the text file of the lyrics and stuff. Is that something that occurs through the distribution? Because I've seen it, I feel like on Spotify especially, I've seen it mostly on commercial, like label distributed songs, but on like more indie music, it sometimes is not there. Is that something you guys have any experience with?
We knowledge of a little bit anyway. Yeah, and distributors do so much for us, but they actually only do so much. So for lyrics, you actually have to go to another website platform and upload lyrics yourself. So that's why you'll see the big labels, they have someone working for them doing that all the time. But if you do want to get your lyrics up so that people can see them, you have to go to, I think, Music Match is one of the big ones.
Music's Match.
Oh, Music's Match.
Or Lyric Find, where
Lyric Find,
where you can go yourself and create an account and upload the lyrics for yourself.
And then it has to be tied to your release, like you're to be connected somehow, right?
Yeah, so I'm assuming, and I haven't done it and probably should have for some things, but each track that you release, and so we've kind of skimmed over metadata. There's lots of metadata that you want to attach to your album and to your track. And two of those things are numbers. So you might be familiar with UPC code. So that's when you go to the grocery store and you have a cereal box and it has that number, that code you scan, and then up pops the price. And same thing for the back of CDs and stuff like that. You often see a UPC code number. So each album, or if you're just releasing a single, needs a UPC code. And often the distributors will give you one either for free or for a small price. So again, that's something to factor in to the distributor. Do they give that to you for free or do they charge? And there's actually also third-party sites where you can get one for free as well. So that's for your whole album or your whole single release. But then each track on your album needs a separate unique code, and it's called ISRC code. And so that's a number. Now, at the beginning, when we started releasing albums, CD Baby would give us free codes. So we have 10 tracks on the album, we get 10 different codes, and CD Baby provided that to us, which was great. And if you would also release one of those tracks as a single, you would make sure to use the same ISRC code for that single. So it's all, on all streaming platforms, it's all seen as the same song.
Okay.
So I imagine that's also how the lyrics work. You would pop in the ISRC code when you put in the lyrics for a particular song, and that's how that platform matches it up with other platforms.
And again, all those codes are usually implemented when your album is being mastered. So all the more reason you have to make decisions, the businessy decisions of how you want to get the album. You really need to make those decisions before you master, because when the master is over, the distributor had to supply you with all those codes to implant into your metadata when the mastering is taking place.
Oh.
Yeah, especially if you're doing physical, well, not vinyl. If you're doing a CD, that would be embedded into the CD. But if you're doing digital tracks only, then you would enter that code when you're at CD Baby or what other distributor you're using. So
the codes are free too, I think, because I remember I did it for the hookers, and I just went to a site and there was a formula, but I don't think we paid anything for that.
And don't ask me how we did it, because it was so long ago. I don't remember. But you can, if you're planning to release a lot of albums, you can actually apply to get your own ISRC code
generator.
Yeah. So it's like the first 2/3 of the code will always be the same. It'll only be for your music. And then you can automatically change the last half for the tracks.
Right.
So
I've heard too, it's a good idea to take all these codes, and if they're provided to you by CD Baby or another distributor or your mastering service or whatever, download them, make a copy of them into like a Word document or something, because if they do ever go pop, it's like you say, it is something you may need if you want to connect it to the single versus the album or the lyrics or the whatever. You may need that code. So it's a good idea to make a copy of it, save your own document in your folder.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah. You should really have a spreadsheet for every one of your releases. So you would have the ISRC codes, you'd have the UPC code, you'd have something as simple as the title, because, gosh darn it, type it in there once, make sure it's right, and then copy and paste it every other single time you want to do it. Because even if it's the easiest title, one day you'll mess it up when you didn't want to. And then the track titles, and then, all the other metadata that goes, who were the songwriters on that track? What are the splits for the songwriters? If there's only one songwriter, it's 100%. If it's two songwriters, did you split 50-50, or did you have some other arrangement? Who were the musicians on that track? For the engineers, where did you record it? Because sometimes you need this information, or sometimes you just want this information in the future. So you can also pop in the links. So the links to that your album on Spotify and Apple Music once it all goes live. So you have it all in one place.
Yeah, I know DistroKid does that a lot. They have their landing page for an artist where all the stores are linked. So when the artist shares, just released this album, they share it on their socials or whatever, they just send people to the landing page, because they don't know, is the end user prefer Spotify? Do they prefer Apple? Do they prefer Google? Do they prefer Amazon? Who knows, right? Deezer, whatever the case may be, they can access the store of their choice, or the service of their choice when they get there.
When you sign up for one of these services, let's say after like 6 months or a year, do you get a report about how your song has performed, or is it?
Yeah, so your distributor should have an ongoing report of how many plays you're getting, and then what the financial compensation is for that. But so again, we were talking about distributor does so much, but it doesn't do the lyrics. So you have to go to a separate website to input your lyrics. You also should gain access to your Spotify artist page.
Mm.
So, if you go, go with CD Baby or whoever, and they get your music up on Spotify and it's great, it looks great, you can listen to it, but you're listening to it and looking at it just like any other member of the public would. But there is a back end page for you as an artist to be able to see what's going on your Spotify page. So you want to work with Spotify, you have to go to Spotify to gain access to your artist page. Apple Music, you could also gain access to your artist page. And some of the other ones you can as well. And they provide some even more in-depth information. They also allow you to change like your bio on Spotify and that kind of thing, and your pictures and see what playlists are playing your music and all that stuff. So you do want to take that extra step and gain access to all your profiles on main streaming sites.
So when the distributor collects, like you say, they collect the revenue from Spotify and others, and then the distributor then cuts you a check for your. Now, what is that? Is that the royalties? Like you still gotta, Canadians, we still gotta register our songs with SOCAN, and you like that's the part where it kind of confuses me. Like, is that just performance royalties? Is that the songwriting royalties? What is it, or is it not a royalty at all? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you want to register your song with SOCAN. So as the songwriter and also as the publisher, if you're the self-publisher of your music, SOCAN will pay you royalties for there. But then also, if you're the performer on the album, you want your performance royalties. So in Canada, we have MROC. So they represent the performers. So if you performed on your album, you can get money there. And then if you own the master recording, so you recorded it, so that's another copyright. So not only is there a copyright in the song that was written, but each time that song is recorded, there's a new copyright, and it's that particular recording, and that's called the master recording, that if you did it yourself, you would own the master recording. Usually labels in the past would be the ones, as you said, Neil, funding the recording of the album, so they would keep the rights in the master. But if you own it, again, you can register with something like, there's different ones, but like Connect Music, and they would pay you royalties for the use of the master recording.
But I have a question. In this day and age, like right now, because I remember we used to get some checks back when we used to make CDs. And it was only CDs. I remember when we first started, like almost 20 years ago now, when we released our first album, we did use CD Baby that very first time. And we used to mail the CDs to CD Baby. So then anybody who went to their site, they would mail it for us. That was the word distributor was really like.
There's a reason it's called CD Baby, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And they were a true like physical distribution, not like digital like it is today. But the question I have for Lisa is, in this day and age, do we ever get a check from CD Baby? Or is it only from the different
for the streaming? Yeah.
For the streaming. So we don't get
checks, but
we get money distributed. So we don't get money from SOCAN for streaming.
You do. Yeah.
Oh, we do, but that's only for because I'm the writer.
Yeah.
Yes, I see. Okay, so we're getting. It makes it sound like we're getting money and checks from left, right.
They're all for 12 cents each, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But because like DistroKid, for example, they're very. I mean, okay, I'll be honest. Like when I've only got one EP myself out there on Spotify and all the stores and stuff like that, and I found a free service called Root Note. A distributor called Root Note, and they have two plans. They have one plan that's free to upload, and they'll distribute it to all the stores and blah blah blah, and they keep 15% of your revenue, right? The other plan is you pay them and you keep 100% of your revenue, and that's DistroKid's whole thing. You pay us a yearly subscription, and you keep 100% of your revenue. So where I'm lost is what constitutes revenue.
Right, because as Lisa mapped out, man, there's so many layers to what we do, right? Where writer, you're the performer, or do you own the master recording? I mean, there's a lot of layers there, right? And we haven't even touched film and television yet.
Oh, good Lord. Sync and everything. Oh, my God.
Things like that. That's a whole other kettle of fish.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Jeez.
It is, but it is something, again, to consider when you're recording your album and before you distribute it, is do you think you might want to put your music in or try to get it in film and television? And if you do, when you're at the mixing, mastering stages, it's a great idea to have an instrumental-only version of your track. So you just mute the vocals if you have vocals on your track and get that instrumental version, and that'll be much more appealing to for film and television.
That's a really great tip, and it really takes absolutely no time in the mixing stage. And even if you don't think you will ever go down the film and TV road, trust me, just do it and have it. So in case something in your life changes, you have it. If
That's
you
a great tip.
do it and you were working at a studio and that doesn't exist anymore, or they deleted all your sessions and that kind of thing, then you're going to regret it because you can't get rid of your vocals from your mix. You know what I mean? Like your final full album mix and stuff like that. So, so that's
Great
a really
point.
People to always do, even if you don't think you'll need it, or if you don't think your music is conducive to it, you never know.
Wow.
Wow.
Interesting.
There
never would have
is
thought
so
of
much
that.
knowledge. Yeah, my Lord.
Goodness gracious.
My brain is sweating right now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because there was only one other thing I was wondering, only because the band I'm in, Bay Shelter, we're dealing with this right now. We're preparing to release a cover song, and I know things can get a little wishy-washy. I found out something about you need to get a mechanical license in addition to, once you get the mechanical license, which I guess is another kind of company or whatever, you pay them to sort of do the research for who owns the rights to this song that you're covering, and then they do the legwork for you, and you just pay one fee, and then you're set. And then after that, you just upload as usual. And your distributor then may ask you for that mechanical license to say, hey, they'll put up a red flag. Hey, you're uploading your cover. We need to see your mechanical license, whether it's a PDF or something. You just need to upload to them, something like that.
Yeah, and if you're distributing digitally, then yeah, that's all you have to do. But if you are distributing physical copies, then you do have to pay. On top of that license, you have to pay the writers of the song for every physical media that you duplicate.
Right. Yeah, and the little research I did as well, when you get your mechanical license, they also say estimate, in the first year or whatever, how many downloads you'll get, or how many online purchases you'll get, or whatever. And I guess if you exceed that, then what, do they invoice you again or something? Because you do have to pay. Yeah, because it does accumulate per copy.
Yeah, it should, though. It's Spotify who will end up paying the songwriter of
Right.
cover that you're doing. So it doesn't come, well, it comes out of your pocket, but you never saw it. So it never doesn't actually come out of your pocket. Spotify just automatically pays out the songwriters. So yeah, you won't have to pay a new fee, even if it blows up and does amazing.
Right.
And as we were talking about earlier, before we started recording, Lisa and I have a lot of friends, music friends, who do a lot of covers. They will go through this process, and from a business standpoint, of course, there's been especially in the pop music world with songs, there's been a lot of amazing artists who are, doing covers of really ultra famous songs and putting their own spin on it. And, despite all this rigmarole that we're talking about with the business and the licensing, and then, you not getting to collect all the royalties because you didn't write the song, is it worth it? Of course it is, because that's drawing people to your music where they're going to check out your originals and stuff. It's just like why people play covers at live things, right? That satisfies the crowd, and then you can slip in your own songs, and that's how you get, the foot in the door, so to speak, with an audience. And so it really is worth it to go through the hassle. The other thing, though, despite all these things, Lisa, we've had this conversation before a lot about how the music business is so strange compared to other art forms, because despite all this stuff you need to do, you technically do not have to ask permission from the writers of the song to record their song. It provided you all of this stuff. This is something that's very unique to music. In fact, Prince was notorious for hating this aspect. Prince pretty well hated every single cover ever done of any of the songs he wrote, including Sinead O'Connor. You know, nothing compares to you. He was, you know, one of the most famous songs in pop music history is a cover of a Prince song, and Prince himself hated her cover, you know, but what he couldn't do anything about it, even though he raked in so much royalties for it. So isn't it a weird thing in our world?
At the beginning of the show, we talked about, you know, why you want to distribute your music. Well, there's one reason why you don't want to. So as long as, if you play your songs, you know, in clubs and live and all that kind of stuff, there will always be just your songs. But as soon as you do a public release of your song, you can record it as long as you don't publicly release it. But once you publicly release it on a streaming site, in a CD that's, you know, in a store, that means that anyone in the world can now cover your song
and do whatever they want. You wrote a melancholy, shoegazy type of thing. Somebody could take all your lyrics, your melody, and your parts, and make it into a upbeat polka song. And there's nothing you could do about it.
And they don't have
collect the royalties.
Well, they still have to credit. But what if they don't credit you and just release their
Now that's different. That's plagiarism. And now we're getting into a whole other level.
That's another episode.
I think that's another episode.
That's plagiarism.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I think I'm here in the band.
Show.
That was fantastic. Thank you guys so much. That was a wealth of information. That is all the time we have on the show. Special thanks to Frank and Lisa Horvat.
Thank you.
Where can our listeners find out more about you?
So we, like I said, we do our thing, and our website is frankhorvat.com. My full name, and I'm on all the socials. So
we will send folks that way from the show post for this episode, and we do want to hear from you too. So please send us your comments, questions on Facebook or Instagram to @SongTalkRadio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. And you can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page. That's on the website. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. Whether you're in Toronto for in-person meetups or anywhere in the world for our online meetups, it's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend. Bring a song and a lyric sheet and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com, and you can follow Phil
at philemery.ca.
And Frank, what's your favorite social media platform? Where do you post the most?
Everywhere, like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure.
And can I say I'm still on Twitter? I'm always thinking
you're an X.
Why not?
But I can't. I don't know why I can't. I don't know why. I should, but I don't know. No TikTok. Don't do TikTok yet, but maybe one day. I'm like,
oh, you don't have TikTok yet?
No TikTok yet. Maybe though.
You have a what was that old school music site?
MySpace.
MySpace. You have MySpace.
I still have I'm sure it's still there.
MP3.com.
MP3.com account. Oh my god. All right. Be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, browse past shows, and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on writing. Keep on distributing.
And if you're on YouTube, subscribe and click the bell and do all that stuff.